I never thought my own daughter and son-in-law could treat me like a burden, only to then try and cling to me like I was their personal ATM once they discovered my true worth. Oh, they would learn that day, but not in the way they expected, that the quiet ones often have the loudest truths. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My life before that fateful Christmas was, by most accounts, unremarkable to anyone but me. I was Margaret, a 54-year-old widow who'd lost her teaching job a few years back to budget cuts. Money had always been tight, especially after my husband passed, and I channeled my restless energy and lifelong love of knitting into an online platform I called Stitch Your Dreams. It was my solace, my passion, my quiet way of contributing to the world from my small, comfortable home. I poured my heart and soul into it, creating intricate patterns, filming detailed tutorials, and building a community of fellow enthusiasts. My daughter Brina and her husband Kyle, however, saw it differently. They saw it as a quaint little hobby, something I did to keep busy in my retirement, a polite euphemism for unemployed. Their lives, on the other hand, were a constant parade of new gadgets, expensive vacations they couldn't quite afford, and the underlying hum of credit card debt they seemed to wear like a badge of honor. They lived beyond their means, always. I knew this because I'd often been their emergency fund, quietly slipping them money when they were between jobs or just needed a little help getting by. I did it out of love, of course, because that's what mothers do, isn't it? You sacrifice, you give, you hope they find their footing. But that generosity had, over time, subtly shifted into an expectation, and my sacrifices were simply taken for granted. This all came to a head on Christmas Day. My little house, usually filled with the warmth of family, felt strangely cold that year, despite the twinkling lights and the scent of pine. Brenna, Kyle, and my two grandchildren, Emma and Jake, were gathered around the dining table. The kids, 7-year-old Emma and 5-year-old Jake, were happily playing with their new toys, blissfully unaware of the tension that crackled in the air. Brenna, ever the polished one, was recounting some triumph at her office, while Kyle, always quick with a dismissive remark, was talking about a new car he was eyeing, despite his increasingly precarious employment situation. The conversation, as it often did, veered to my situation. "Mom, it's really sweet you have your little knitting group online," Brenna said, her tone dripping with condescension. "But have you thought about something, more stable? Something with benefits? I mean, a teacher's pension would have been so much better than whatever this is." Kyle, not one to miss an opportunity to chime in, added, "Yeah, Margaret, online hobbies are great, but they don't exactly pay the bills, do they? You can't keep steady work. You should really consider something more practical. Perhaps a greeter at the local department store? That might even get you some discounts." My heart, which had been hardened by years of similar comments, still managed to ache. I'd spent countless sleepless nights building Stitch Your Dreams, nurturing it from a kernel of an idea into a thriving community. To hear it dismissed so casually, so cruelly, as if my efforts were worthless, was a fresh wound. Emma, bless her innocent heart, piped up from the living room, "But Grandma, you make so many people happy with your knitting, and you have students all over the world." Kyle chuckled. "That's lovely, Emma, but happiness doesn't pay the rent." Just as I was about to formulate a polite yet firm response, the local news came on the television in the background, a low hum I usually ignored during family gatherings. But then a familiar face flashed across the screen. My face. The reporter, a cheerful young woman, was standing in front of a sleek, modern office building, talking animatedly. And in local business news, she announced, "Our very own Margaret Davies, founder of the revolutionary online knitting platform Stitch Your Dreams, has just announced its latest round of funding, valuing the company at over $750,000. With over 50,000 students in 47 countries, Margaret has proven that passion and innovation can turn a traditional craft into a multi-million-dollar empire She's a true inspiration to late-life entrepreneurs everywhere." The words hung in the air, echoing in the sudden, stunned silence of my dining room. Brina's fork clattered onto her plate. Kyle's jaw dropped so far, I thought it might detach. Their faces, just moments ago smug and dismissive, were now a grotesque mask of shock and disbelief. Emma, completely oblivious to the adult drama, cheered. "See, I told you, Daddy, Grandma's famous." My grandchildren, at least, saw me for who I was. Or, at least, who I was becoming. The shift in the room was palpable, like a sudden drop in temperature. My heart still ached from their earlier comments, but now a different emotion began to stir within me, a quiet, cold resolve. This was not about revenge in the petty sense, but about justice. Justice for years of being underestimated, dismissed, and used. They had seen me as a burden, then as a quaint hobbyist. They were about to learn that I was neither. The next few weeks were a flurry of activity, though not the kind they expected. The initial shock gave way to a series of manipulative calls from Brina and Kyle. Suddenly, I was their wise and successful mother they were so proud of. Kyle, who once suggested I be a greeter, now called to offer his business insights, clearly hoping to position himself as my advisor, no doubt envisioning a direct pipeline to my newfound wealth. Brina, who had dismissed my business as a hobby, now tearfully recounted their mounting credit card debt, their lack of an emergency fund, and how tough things were, painting a picture of dire need, undoubtedly hoping I'd open my personal vault to them without question. I listened, I nodded, but I did not engage in the same old dance. The transformation within me was profound. The victim I had been, the one who silently absorbed their slights and generously provided funds, was gone. In her place stood a strategist, a woman who had built a multi-million-dollar business from scratch. I opened new accounts, meticulously documented every call and interaction in a dedicated notebook, and even began quietly consulting with a trusted lawyer, not to pursue action against them, but to understand my legal rights and responsibilities should things escalate. I needed to ensure that any help I offered was strategic, not enabling. My first step was setting firm boundaries. When Brina called, lamenting her financial woes, I gently but clearly stated, "Brina, I love you, but my financial situation is my own. I expect to be treated with respect, as an equal, not as a resource. We can talk about solutions, but not about me simply bailing you out anymore." It was a shock to them, I could tell, but it was a line I needed to draw. The real test came a few months later. Kyle lost his job not unexpectedly, given his attitude and lack of commitment. Brenna called me, tears streaming, describing their desperate situation. "Mom, we're at the end of our rope. Kyle's out of work, the bills are piling up, and we have nothing. We just need some help to get back on our feet." My heart, despite everything, still felt a pang. My daughter was truly in distress. But the strategist in me knew that simply handing over money would solve nothing. It would only perpetuate their cycle. "Brenna," I said, my voice firm but compassionate, "I am willing to help, but on my terms. I will give you a one-time gift of $15,000. This is not a loan, and I do not expect it back. However, it is conditional. Both you and Kyle must commit to attending financial counseling with Dr. Patricia Hoffman. You need to learn how to manage your finances, to live within your means, and to build a secure future. I will not enable the same patterns that have led you here again and again." There was silence on the other end, followed by a frustrated sigh. "Financial counseling? Mom, we're not idiots. We just need money." Kyle scoffed in the background. "This is ridiculous, Margaret. We don't need lectures, we need cash." Dr. Hoffman later confirmed my suspicions. They attended the first few sessions with an air of resistance and dismissiveness, convinced they knew better, constantly making excuses. It seemed my tough love was hitting a brick wall. Emma, sensing the ongoing tension, once asked me, "Grandma, why is Mommy always sad about money?" I just held her close, knowing that some lessons had to be learned the hard way. Then, life dealt them a blow far greater than any financial setback they had engineered. Brenna, working at a pharmaceutical company, suffered a severe chemical exposure accident. She was rushed to the hospital, her respiratory system compromised, and the doctors warned of potential permanent neurological damage, affecting her memory, coordination, and concentration. This was no longer a self-inflicted wound of financial irresponsibility. This was a genuine crisis, an external, devastating event that threatened their entire future. My maternal instinct, raw and powerful, surged to the forefront. I was there, at the hospital, immediately. I sat by Brenna's bedside, holding her hand, my heart breaking for my child, despite all our past issues. Kyle, pale and terrified, was a shell of his former arrogant self. In this moment of true vulnerability, their pride shattered. They finally looked to me not as a bank, but as a pillar of strength, for guidance, for support. It was then, and only then, that I truly stepped in. I took charge. "Kyle," I said, my voice calm and authoritative, "we are going to pursue a lawsuit against that company. This is beyond your control, and they need to be held accountable." He looked at me, bewildered, but nodded, desperation in his eyes. I immediately put them in touch with Janet Morrison, a sharp and ruthless lawyer I knew through my business connections. I provided immediate financial assistance, not as a gift but as a lifeline, to cover their urgent medical bills and living expenses while Brenna recovered. This was true familial support, given when the need was legitimate and beyond their own doing, and it came with no conditions other than their full cooperation with the legal process. The lawsuit was a long and arduous battle, but it brought Kyle and Brenna together in a way I had never seen. Kyle, usually so dismissive, became Brenna's fiercest advocate, meticulously gathering documents, attending every meeting, his arrogance replaced by a quiet, determined focus. Janet Morrison, our lawyer, was a force of nature. She dug deep, unearthing a pattern of corporate cover-ups that made our case ironclad. We brought in Dr. Sarah Chen, a former employee of the pharmaceutical company, who, despite fear for her career, courageously testified. Dr. Chen revealed that the company had known about a faulty ventilation system in Brenna's department for over 6 months, deliberately delaying repairs to prioritize profits. They had even actively covered up previous similar incidents. It was a shocking revelation, strengthening our case immeasurably and transforming it from an unfortunate accident into a clear-cut case of corporate malfeasance. During this ordeal, I watched Kyle and Brenna undergo a profound personal transformation. They were forced to confront their vulnerabilities, to truly work together, and to take responsibility for something far greater than themselves. They learned resilience, advocacy, and the value of hard, honest work. They were living within their means, making tough choices, supporting each other. The climax of our legal battle came with the settlement. The pharmaceutical company, facing undeniable evidence and a furious, unified family, settled for a substantial sum, $2, $4 million. This ensured Brenna's long-term financial security, even with her potential permanent neurological challenges. It was a victory, but a bittersweet one, for the cost of it was Brenna's health. However, it was also a turning point for my family. After the settlement was finalized, after the immediate relief and gratitude had settled, Kyle came to my house. He looked different, humbled. "Margaret," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "I have something to confess." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a bank statement. "Remember that $15,000 you gave us, conditional on the counseling?" I nodded, recalling their initial dismissiveness. "We never spent it, not a single cent. We opened a separate account, put it in there, and used it as our psychological safety net. We told ourselves we have this if things go truly sideways, but we're going to make it without touching it. We forced ourselves to budget, to cut expenses, to look for every penny. We started paying off our credit cards, little by little. We learned to live within our means. That money, that safety net actually gave us the courage to change." My eyes welled up. This was the true payment, the real justice I had hoped for. This was genuine growth. He then handed me a check. "And here's your $15,000 back. We earned it. We don't need it anymore." Brenna, who had joined us, her movements still a little slow, Her words, sometimes requiring a moment to find, hugged me tightly. "Mom," she whispered, "I am so sorry. For everything. For how we treated you, how we dismissed you. We projected our own failures onto you. We were so caught up in our own insecurities, our own struggles to thrive, that we couldn't see your success, we couldn't acknowledge your worth. We just saw an easy way out, or someone to look down on. You saved us, Mom, not just with money, but with tough love, with guidance, and with unwavering support when it truly mattered." It was the most honest, heartfelt apology I had ever received, and it washed away years of hurt. Our reconciliation was complete, built on a new foundation of mutual respect and genuine understanding. My family finally saw me not as a burden, not as a bank, but as a capable, wise, and respected individual. Justice, for me, was not about their ruin, but about their transformation and the restoration of our fractured family bond. I reclaimed my life, not by moving to a villa by the sea, but by settling deeper into the life I had built, a life of independence and purpose. My Stitch Your Dreams platform continued to thrive, expanding even further, giving me financial freedom and a profound sense of accomplishment. Kyle, emboldened by his newfound work ethic and a desire for independence, started his own small construction business. He learned to manage it carefully, responsibly, and it began to flourish. Brenna, despite her lingering health issues, found a new calling. Drawing on her own harrowing experience, she became a part-time consultant for workplace safety firms, advocating for employees and ensuring no one else suffered due to corporate negligence. She was a different woman, resolute and empathetic, and Emma, my bright, observant granddaughter, inspired by me, started her own little venture, a small online business selling unique knitted hair accessories she made herself, calling it Emma's Little Knits. My family didn't need my money anymore, but they valued my counsel, my experience, and my unconditional, but now much wiser, love. The silence at our next Christmas dinner was not one of shock or tension, but of comfortable, joyful camaraderie, filled with genuine respect and the quiet hum of a family truly rebuilt. My path from being overlooked to becoming a mentor, from a quiet hobbyist to a successful entrepreneur, was complete. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.